Thank you very much for that, Anne-Marie. It's very, very clear, very cogently put case, I think. We'll go straight through with our three speakers, and as I said, we'll come back and take questions and contributions. So our next speaker, Alon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, Miriam. I'm going to be far less serious, I think, than everybody who's gone before me, because my experience of being an ex-Muslim atheist has been quite positive. I was born in Bangladesh, grew up in the Elephant and Castle, and I don't think I ever really thought of myself as a Muslim much beyond the age of 7 or 8. I find the term ex-Muslim atheist useful politically, and I'll discuss that later, but it feels a bit disingenuous because I don't know if I ever, as an adult, considered myself a Muslim. And I was introduced as a distinguished ex-Muslim, which feels really nice. And here's the thing, the irony is that I think I am becoming a distinguished ex-Muslim. The only reason being that there are so few distinguished ex-Muslims who speak out about being an ex-Muslim atheist in Europe, in the UK, in the West. I recently wrote an article for The Guardian's Commenters Free site, which I gave the headline, "Where Are All the Black Atheists?" which The Guardian toned down to something far less controversial. And I made the case that, think of the famous atheists, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, A.C. Grayling, Daniel Dennett. They're all old white men. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being an old white man.
Good.
Right? But I feel that we're missing role models from other backgrounds, and people said, well, what about, Ariane, yes, thank you, I've forgotten her name, but, I think there are issues with the way she expresses herself which actually turn lots of ex-Muslims against her because they don't want to associate with her particular brand of militant atheism. I came out as an atheist quite publicly because I'm going to share some very good news with you all. I recently have been offered a book deal to write about atheism for young people, and it's been a long battle to get that book deal because the book, which is obviously going to be brilliant, was rejected by some of the major publishers who I met with all of them, had meetings with some of the top publishing companies where I was led to believe that they loved my writing, they loved what I had to say, and then last minute, I'm sorry, we're not going to publish this. And I will be naming and shaming some of these people because I have emails in which some of the world's top publishers have said, we'd love to publish this book, but I'm sorry, my colleagues are too scared to. And my book is not a book that is critical of Islam. It is a look at atheism, the philosophy and theology and science that has influenced my thinking. And yet, there are people self-censoring, people who are reluctant to publish my work simply because I'm from a Bangladeshi Muslim background. And I think that's disgusting. I would have been much happier if they had said something like, we don't like the way you write, or we don't think this book will sell, or something like that. And those were not the reasons that were presented to me. But there is a publisher who has decided to publish, and it will be in bookstores next year. Please look out for it. I wrote an article in The Guardian to show these people that someone like me can speak out and say, look, I'm from a Muslim background, but I've rejected Islam, and it's okay. Nobody's going to suicide bomb me. In England, there is this kind of myth that if you speak out against Islam, something bad will happen to you. But actually, we're lucky here. We live in a free society, and people like me can exist. And there are lots. What the most delightful thing about coming out and speaking openly about my rejection of Islam is how many others I have met. That's been the most delightful thing. The saddest thing has been the numerous emails I get from people saying, thank you for talking about this, but I can't do it myself, or I will upset my family if I come out. And I think those of us who are out, and I deliberately use the term that the gay community uses because there are parallels. Those of us who are out and who do live in free societies have a duty and obligation to speak out so that others in our communities in the West follow us if they feel the need to. If there are people sitting in communities around this country, in Islamic communities, or so-called Islamic communities, who don't believe in religion or who want to reject those aspects of the culture they've been brought up in, they should feel free to do so, because guess what? In this country, nobody's going to kill you. And you know what? Nobody's going to blow up a publisher's or a bookshop necessarily, unless we give the kind of terrorists, the Islamists, reasons to do so. Now, I'm not going to go into details about how these things happen. I've just read a very good book by Keenan Malik called From Fatwa to Jihad, in which he kind of rips apart these kind of ideas about how Muslims are portrayed in the mainstream media, how the Islamist movement has grown up out of perhaps misguided multiculturalist policies and so forth. So, you know, go and read him, he's far smarter. While I talk about Keenan, let me mention something. I'm incredibly delighted to be here because, you know, I'm younger than Keenan, and I'm younger than Salman, and Keenan Malik, Salman Rushdie, Hanif Qureshi, these guys were, you know, intellectual powerhouses who really made the case against the kind of Islamist nonsense that we see. But where is the young generation of such writers? You know, where is the new Salman Rushdie? Where is the new Hanif Qureshi? I don't see them. And I wonder if that's a symptom of this kind of Islamist movement that is kind of polluting the rich Asian cultures that my parents brought to this country. And there's just been this kind of idea that if you're Pakistani or if you're Bengali, Bangladeshi, that you have to be Muslim first and foremost. So you get people describing themselves, instead of, when I was a child I would describe myself as a Bangladeshi. And now people from where I come from describe themselves as Muslims first and foremost. And that's happened in the last couple of decades, and people like me should be speaking out against it. And we should be celebrating aspects of Bangladeshi culture, Pakistani culture, Indian culture, whatever, that are not religiously tainted. And if we don't help others to kind of retain their ethnic identities whilst rejecting the kind of identities that the Islamists are trying to impose on them, then we're not doing our duty. And going back to the wider themes of today, I feel really strongly that I need to speak out wherever I can. So I'm in a fortunate position. I have a platform in various places, and I will speak out. I will continue speaking out, because we are free to do so. And we've heard today how so many people are not free to do so. And you know, we should be ashamed if we're not using the liberties that we have by dint of the simple fact that we live here. We should be ashamed that we don't use those liberties when so many don't have them. I'm going to touch on a final problem, which was when I wrote this piece in The Guardian about the lack of kind of non-white prominent atheists. There's a lot of backlash, and it wasn't from Islamists, it wasn't from Muslims, it was from white atheists. And they were saying, oh, atheists aren't racist, and atheism isn't about race or color or nonsense. It's far more difficult for people from certain communities, even in England, to come forward and say, I am an atheist. It's more difficult. There are cultural reasons, there are all sorts of reasons why people may feel that they cannot be out and open about it. And what we can do in this country, because we are free, is we can break down the barriers that make people uncomfortable in coming forward as non-believers. And if we can't achieve it here, my God, what chance do we have in places like Iran? You know, seriously, think about that. If in England, where we are free to be apostates or whatever, we are failing to encourage people in those communities to come forward and you know, be atheists, non-believers, whatever they want to be, then I don't see how we're going to deal with the problem globally. So that's all I want to say, really. Take questions.